Hello, and welcome to another TipHaus Insider Webinar. I am your host, Kirk, and I'm excited to have you joining us today. Today, we are going to be chatting through tips are complicated, but your system doesn't have to be. Practical guide to modern tip management, and of course, covering all things that we do here at TipHaus. So really appreciate you joining us here, and want to make sure that we're on the same page about our agenda and what we'll be covering here. So obviously, I'll start to introduce myself and touch on a few housekeeping notes, such as this one. We'll set the stage about what tip management really is, what makes it so difficult, and where these little traps and trapdoors may be for it. A couple of the major pain points that are driving operators to look for change, or at least driving them nuts and keeping them from getting some sleep at night. Then I will dive into what modern tip management looks like, why it fits in your existing tech stack, and what we are striving to accomplish for all operators across the nation here. And of course, no webinar would be complete without a live demo. I'm going to walk you through what TipHaus actually looks like in action today. And we do have a live Q&A. So with that in mind, again, I am your host, Kirk Grogan. I am a COO and co-founder here at TipHaus, and I can't thank you enough for joining us with us. A few housekeeping notes as we always like to dive into this. We do have live chats and question and answers available. We will do Q&A at the end, but that does not mean you have to wait for the questions. If you have something, I introduce a topic or an idea and it prompts a question, please go ahead and throw it in the chat. We do have live amazing help from our customer success team who is here to answer questions live along the journey. And anything that doesn't get answered or that I want to double back on and elaborate on further, I will happily touch on at the Q&A at the end, make sure that everyone gets the same answer that you received. Next up, recording. As all of these are, we do record these. So if you registered for this, whatever email you use to register will receive a copy of this. We understand the hospitality industry. If a fire comes up and you've got to go handle something, if internet crashes, if a guest is being a little crazy in your restaurant and you're watching from the office right now, do not hesitate. Go handle your business as you need to. And this will be in your inbox when you are done with that problem child, let's say. So next piece is we do have resources coming for this. In the email after, there will be resources as well. But during this, there will be things like QR codes that you're welcome to scan and gain more information. We will also run a QR code for a demo if you would like, and that is an extended free free trial, so that you can get that. That is exclusive to webinar attendees if you would like to take advantage of that. And last, but certainly not least, maybe the reason a couple of you are joining is just for the Starbucks gift card here, but we always will pick a random winner at the end of the webinar. So stick around. You have to be a live attendee to be on with that. So I will randomize all the attendees at the end. Whoever's name is at the top will be our winner. And without further ado, let's dive on in. So to start with, let's set the stage. Tip management complexity is not a size problem. It is a systems problem. It shows up at one location, shows up at 100 locations, shows up at 1,000 locations. But the piece that I really want to drive home here is it often rears its head really badly once you hit 2, 3, 4, 5 locations, of course. Why is that? Well, because operators, restaurateurs, they are hell of operators, realistically. They can brute force things at 1, 2, maybe even 3 locations. You can really do things very, very well manually, even if it's at the cost of relationships or sleep or spending time at home. But you're able to do a lot of these items. Now, as you scale, systems and processes become the most critical piece. That being said, I do not want you to have to wait for that. We're going to cover today what tip complexity actually looks like and why, even though you may be able to brute force it, it's something you should really get off of your plate. There are far better uses of your time than dealing with Excel sheets, let's say. So, why is tip management getting harder to ignore? Well, great questions on all fronts with it. And what we really see is industry trends, if we're going to be honest with it. One of the major issues going to be is cash. And it's no secret, like cash was on the way out of the economy as a whole pre-COVID. COVID accelerated that downfall. And now, with our POS partners, we typically see between 95 and 97% of all transactions at restaurants occur on credit card, meaning you don't have enough cash on hand, and cash creates a massive liability now. So it's something we always want to pay attention to. I'll touch on more as we go. And there are some horror stories across the nation, of course, of things going on with cash. But at a bare minimum, massive time really accounting issues. You end up having this petty bank that doesn't always add up, and you're left wondering what's going on with it. So cash is one of the big pieces on why it is getting harder to ignore, but truthfully, it's expensive at every size. And so we see this regularly where bank run, spreadsheet reconciliation, correction time, where employees clocked into the wrong job code and they were actually a bartender today, not a server. All of these take time for managers to get going. Bottom left here, employees expect transparency. We'll touch on this a few times, but it bears repeating to the nth degree here, which is employees are getting savvier. Transparency is becoming easier on all facets of life, and how they earn their income should absolutely be at the top tier of those categories, right? We want to make sure that our employees understand how their tips are coming in. We want to make sure that they know it is a fair amount, that they have full transparency to exactly what it is. It helps you as a manager, owner, operator, whatever it might be. You're not going to receive as many questions. You're not going to get dirty looks on it. You're not going to get frustrated employees. All of those are great. But more than anything, we want to make sure we're keeping tenure. We want to make sure we're reducing turnover. And bluntly, is we just want to provide the experience that our employees deserve and that technology allows. So rules getting more complex. That is a very real scenario. Really, really savvy operators out there are quickly realizing that the service model is changing. Sometimes we're getting rid of food runners and hostess or hosts are doing more work. Sometimes we're introducing QAs in that. Sometimes we have different schedules for different days of the weeks, or even for things like game days, or, I know a lot of interest right now in World Cup. And we've had a lot of outreach of people saying, hey, yes, I was able to brute force it for a while, but I am scared of what the World Cup is about to do for our restaurant. And we want to make sure we get tips right, as there's going to be thousands and thousands of dollars flowing through on a daily basis. So as rules get more complex, you want something that automates it, of course, whether that's across job codes, service charges. You want to introduce hybrid models, which we speak a lot about here at TipHaus. The honest answer is, Microsoft Excel is one of the greatest tools in the world that was built for nothing specifically, right? Everyone uses it for their own needs. But when it comes to something like earning actual income and how these employees make their livelihood, we want a tool dedicated to it. Another piece to pay attention to that, unfortunately, we see a lot of restaurants don't quite catch is that regulations are evolving. And so whether this is like OBBBA, which, if you have never tuned into one of these before, you can look online. We have numerous studies about this, and we've talked about it ad nauseum. But what that does for voluntary tips versus involuntary tips, when we talk about service credit card charges and are you able to deduct them, when we look at tip credits, so are you paying minimum wage or are you paying below because you're in a tip credit state? All of these things need to be tracked regularly. And that's, of course, where you want a partner that helps handle that for you. That is what TipHaus do. And we like to be the guardrails around things for you. And then, tips really are one of the last manual gap. From the calculations of it to the management to the recommendations on tip policies and what you should be using, not just from a legality standpoint, but to what is the industry at large using? What's my region doing? What do my competitors on the street do for their tip policies, and how do we think about this? But you've already got cloud point of sale, scheduling, payroll. I'll say all modernized, depends on your tech stack, of course. Maybe there's a few out here still with server on site and some of those a little bit of a laggard tech stack, but we can work with them as well, of course. But in general, tip management is one of those last workflows that's still stuck in a spreadsheet that doesn't have a centralized platform that you really want to utilize. And of course, that is what TipHaus is here to solve. So as we dive into it, I want to touch on a few pain points and see if this resonates with you. One of the most prominent things that we're hearing more and more and more, cash handling and bank runs. We started as just a calculator and a tip management platform. We actually didn't move money. We just recommended the employees and the denominations that go there. 2019, 2020, 21, we started to hear more and more about this. Now, this is one of the number one pieces that we hear on every call, every demo, every conference that we're speaking at or engaging with prospects and customers, is how we handle this. That you've really got two, if I'm going to be honest here, bad options. One is put all tips onto a paycheck. Great, easier for managers, payroll teams already accommodated for it. You're pulling that straight from the point of sale. You don't know if you're calculating the tip pools and tip shares and reconciliation right, but largely it's out of sight, out of mind for you. It is not that for your employees. It is an industry standard and has been forever. I started at Chili's at 16 a couple decades ago, and we were getting tips every single night. Then I moved up in the hotel world. We were getting tips. I managed wine bars through college, same thing, getting tips and paying out my employees. It's an industry standard and has been forever. So employees expect to get their tips at the end of every evening. Going to a paycheck is a little bit of a subpar experience for them. Then, okay, so we're going to handle cash. We're going to make sure that we're bringing cash into our restaurant, and we're going to pay out these employees every single day. That sounds great until you realize that, someone has to be going to get that cash. With 97% of credit card transactions, it means guests aren't paying enough cash for you to have on hand to pay out at the end of the shift. That's never a fun piece. You don't want to make bank runs. You don't want to have armored car deliveries. We see a lot of the big enterprise groups have pivoted away from that as we're working with them on the digital payouts. There's the other aspect that you don't want your manager taking time off the floor. You want them either in a back office calculating individually, and you certainly don't want them having to go off-site or work additional hours, before they even show up to the restaurant. No business for that in 2026. So we're better than that. We can do better than that. And then there's the cash on site, the theft risk, employee disputes, liabilities that grow with every shift. Insurance actually cares about this if you've ever interacted with them. But, I'll give one example just to drive the point home with it is we were interacting with a household name, a full service restaurant, massive enterprise group. And as we were chatting with them as one of the largest franchise owners of this group based out of the Southeast, and they had mentioned to us, they said, hey, we're dealing with robberies. We're extensive robberies. And we think it is from either former employees or friends of employees or someone that has intimate knowledge. But the end result is they know when our armored car deliveries happen. They know where the safe is in the manager's office, and they are waiting for the manager to exit at 1, 2 a.m. in the morning out that back door. They're not taking a massive amount. Not that it's ever a good idea to get into an armed robbery, but $5,000, $10,000 a time. But across the 150 locations that this franchisee owned, they were losing $20,000, $30,000 a month in this. Insurance costs are skyrocketing. They're looking at security. They're looking at all of these items. But again, cash is a risky piece. And we'll take it even further of just like, do we want our servers, our bartenders, our individuals walking through a parking lot when we close with 200, 300, 400 cash on them? Certainly not. So something that we want to pay attention to and get rid of that pain point. If we dive into our second one here, spreadsheets, again, I'll always reference that Excel is not made for tips. You can force function it. You can absolutely get it to do it. However, you have a number of issues. One is how many managers are using the sheet, and are they all understanding of what the formulas do, and do they follow the advice on that red cell where you say formula, do not touch? Did they accidentally input something there? Was there a mistake there? If you have a formula error on Excel, particularly if you don't catch it, and we've seen this a number of times, it was set up correctly. Somewhere along the way, a manager accidentally made a change because Excel isn't activity logging. It's not tracking what's going on or verifying this data. And you've got 1, 2, 3 months worth of data that is incorrect. You're paying out accordingly. You now will have to go back and make all of those employees whole. Wrong paychecks for multiple employees actually falls under tip and wage theft, right? It's a massive deal. If you've ever been interacted with, on any legal firm in any position, you understand where this goes. Additionally, wrong paychecks just mean a frustrated staff. Managers are spending time correcting it. Oh, hey, John last night forgot to clock out again and I didn't catch it. We already paid tips out. Now I have to go and recalculate the entire piece. You should have an automated system that once that clock out occurs, it automatically recalculates the entire piece, updates the staff automatically on the phone in their hand for their tip policies and what changed. Make sure everything is off of your plate. Additionally, there is no audit trail in a spreadsheet. And we have seen this, we always, of course, chat with these customers after they have this occur. I wish they would have contacted us before, but typically a lawsuit is a good reason that a bunch of restaurant groups will reach out to us. But if a dispute or wage claim comes up, even if the restaurant is in the right, if you don't have an easy audit trail to back, not just payroll stubs of how much you paid them, but understanding exactly what date, how many total tips came in, how many total tips exited into what denominations to what employees, there's nothing to point to. You're in for a long, tough time, if I'm being honest with you. So that's a tough one on it. And then, of course, we talk state and local tip pooling regulations keep evolving. Manual processes cannot keep up. And it's something you want an expert to be looking over your shoulder and helping you out with. You did not get into hospitality because you love tracking state-by-state legal compliance. It is something we build in on your behalf and we work with you for. So a great piece to keep in mind there. The last piece, I touched on this already, but I'm going to drive this home because it is so valuable. In a world where, over 100% annual turnover is not unheard of. And in fact, for, largely QSR, we're seeing that it is the norm. We're seeing between 105 and 115% annual turnover. Anything we can do to lower that and extend that employee tenure is critical. Transparency is one of those most sought after items. Recognition is one of those sought after items. But when we look at company culture, we can't always, in an industry with razor thin margins, we can't always pay more. And that's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for are these value adds for employees that encourage them to stay longer, that build trust, that give a better working environment, that don't cost the restaurant additional money on that front. So how is my tip calculated? One of the most common questions I referenced earlier. I started my career at Chili's, and I remember, I would turn in my printout report. My manager would put up 2 sheets of paper on an Excel file so I couldn't see anyone else's names, just my row across the middle. And okay, yeah, I'll have to take your word that I brought in $140 in tips, and I'm after my tip out and this and that, I'm walking out with 110. Sounds right mentally, okay, fine. But I needed to go down more granular. There had been a lot more trust if at any moment of any day, I was able to just look through and say, yeah, that checks. I had 3 other employees on with me that we were tip pooling. I see how we got to this number. I have full faith and trust. Great. A lot happier from an employee perspective. Then we look at, manager time spent defending the tip calculations. Again, there are so many better things to do as a manager, owner, operator, whatever you may be, than sitting in the back office chatting with your staff about tip policies and what it looks like and where 17 cents went. That's no fun. Employees who don't have trust in your restaurant, they disengage or they leave. And again, we've seen with TipHaus, I think several studies, and you can find the case studies online, of restaurants once they implemented us, 32% reduction in employee turnover. It's one of those hidden costs, and it's something that is often overlooked in restaurants. But turnover, HBR put out a great piece. That's Harvard Business Review if you don't track it. I think 4,000 to 5,200 was their range, depending on QSR versus FSR and your seniority level, of the cost of turnover for frontline workers in hospitality. Lost productivity. It's, wastage from missed input errors and issues on the point of sale as they're learning. It's a loss of regulars. It's a slowdown of support for other members, right? We're always supporting our other team members. And instead of everyone working together, all of your tenured employees have to help the new individual as they come on. It's the onboarding, the HR, the hiring process. All of those add up. You don't get an invoice that says the total cost of it, but if you ever stop and run the numbers, you will see anything you can do to lower employee turnover is a massive savings to your bottom line. And last, we have got clear, accessible visibility into tip calculations for drop disputes, for building trust at any operational size. And this is the important piece. It's not just for your employees. It's for your managers on each site. If you're a 100, 500 unit location group, you want your regional managers to be able to see what's going on site. You want your assistant managers and your general managers to be able to see what's going on site. You want to be able to make top line decisions about things on an executive corporate level about, okay, what's the average tip earnings? Who's my highest? Is bartender the highest job code? Is it then servers and then support staff? What does this look like? How can we test some hypotheses to see how we might decrease that turnover? All of those things are available when you have a tool available for you like this. So what does modern tip management look like? What did TipHaus set out to solve in this industry when we jumped in almost 8 years ago now? Well, operators should expect, and I say very heavily, they should expect these items. This is not any longer a nice to have or a hope to have. This is what you should expect out of all of your tip management providers. Automated calculations, integrating directly with the point of sale, the time and attendance platform. You should not ever be putting in manual data. That should all be piped in automatically for you. The calculation should be running concurrently to the real-time data. You should have payroll-ready data. You should have a partner that understands each individual payroll provider, even if you use multiples across multiple concepts. It should be clean, consistent with a one-click export and import or an automatic function to go straight into it, depending on the integrations available. But you should not be spending time doing manual cleanup. You shouldn't be having to adjust things heavily. You should not be reconciling these tip data outside of any systems, because then again, you break that chain of custody and that audit trail. Speaking of an audit-ready trail, a defensible time-stamped record for every single tip distribution. Every penny coming in the door is leaving out the door as a tip to those employees. Should be accurate, complete, export ready, and not listed here, but it should be broken down by every pay period so that you can track this and go through it. Employee transparency, of course, I've touched on several times, and it is expected. You will be blown away by how much employees appreciate this if you don't have a tip management solution, if there's nothing giving them visibility. If you dive into this with them, you'll be blown away at what employees have to say about it and things that you never even heard or problems you never knew existed, what that looks like. And the ones that you do hear about, the fewer disputes here. So Less time with managers and employees spent in the back office, less time discussing this, less time with employees going and asking other employees, hey, did your tip earnings look like this? Or what did you make last? I don't know if this is right. Who worked with us last Thursday? What did that look like? And of course, leadership visibility. Your organization, especially as you grow, needs to run perfectly across all of these items. They should all be in sync, from the managers on the floor to the operations teams, to the finance teams, to the payroll teams, to the executive teams, being able to make decisions with a single user-friendly platform. So all items that you should expect and ask as an operator today from your tip management system. Works with what you have, that's TipHaus. Here we are. So when we started way back in the day, we had one integration to kick this off. Now we offer over 30 point of sale and time and attendance integrations. I won't bore you by reading them all through here, but not only can you see them here in a list of what we have, you can always go to tiphaus.com/integration, and that will cover every single one that we have available and how you would actually integrate. So some point of sales have a marketplace that you go to install. Some have an email that you send a request for an API key, and that will get forwarded to us so we can integrate. Number of different methods and manners depending on the individual companies that we're working with. But we do want to call out that we have these all available for you. So it is a time where operators are looking for best in breed, right? They no longer want one size fits all. They want to match exactly the tech stack to their specific needs. And we are here to support you, whether that's, you're doing everything through one point of sale, clocking in and clocking out and sales, and we have customers that, no joke, have 37 or so integrations across 1,500 locations and multiple concepts. And we integrate it all. We bring it all, make it apples to apples for you. So with that, that's a lot of words from me and, not so much live demo. Let's get into a live demo and let's see what this magic actually looks like for you all. So bear with me here as I swap screens and verify that we are seeing the right one here. And we are. All right. So if you have never seen TipHaus before, welcome. This is the home screen dashboard. And here we will have all of the tip data and sales data that are relevant to you broken down by stores. You can see here we're at a 3-location concept. If we wanted to drill down at any one specific store, we can do that real quickly. If we want to get that top line view, again, we can jump right back and see how things are going across our entire store, add more data, pull data out if this is no longer relevant to us, and we can make sure everything we need to see from here is available. Then I like to break down things into the reporting tab. We'll start here real quickly so you can see what we're dealing with. But I mentioned we pull sources from 2, point of sale and time and attendance. So you can see here your point of sale. We're going to pull all of this in automatically from your point of sale. Every one of these pieces automatically comes in so we can see exactly what's going on. And of course, we will also work with work shifts. So we know who's working, what job code, what their payroll IDs, shift IDs are, all of the fun stuff. And then with this, we can start to do some magic. And what does that magic look like? Well, I'll walk you through it. So we want to create a rule, and we'll create one that says, what does 2.5% of alcohol sales tipped back to the bartender look like? A very common scenario, give or take the numbers that match for you. But they say, hey, servers selling alcohol on the floor, they need the bartender to assist them. And we want to give a little bit of a tip out back to the bartender for making those drinks, because that bartender is taking time away from serving their guests at the bar top. And we want to encourage them to be quick and fast with this and make a high quality drink. That way the guests on the floor continue to order more and we drive our revenue numbers up, right? So what does it look like to actually create that rule? We want to do this for all 3 of our locations. We're going to put this into effect today. We're going to say 2.5% server to bar as our rule name so we can reference it in the future. We can adjust what date this starts. So if you start with us in the middle of your pay period, we can backdate it. And we can always adjust our schedule as well. We can say, hey, we really only want this to take effect Friday and Saturday. That's when most alcohol sales are occurring. Monday through, Friday lunch, let's say, it doesn't make a lot of sense because we deal with a business crowd, mostly sodas and waters, right? So for now, we'll leave this for all 7 days though, but we can apply it to any number of days we want. And then we're going to say, okay, what was the deal here? We wanted 2.5% of sales to go from servers to bartenders, but not all sales to serve, the bartenders are only helping us with beer, liquor, and wine. They should not be getting tipped out on food categories. And again, these are all ripped directly from your point of sale the day that you integrate with it. So we have these loaded up for you. We can do a number of fun things here, and I won't dive into the details or this can become a quick couple hour long webinar, but just for your knowledge, we can do a ton of items on how we split these up. Do we look at the entire day and people who worked in the morning are sharing with people in the evening? Are we looking by shifts? Do we want it just in the time that sale was made? And that's a proprietary feature that TipHaus created. So number of options, whatever suits your needs, we have available for you. Then we're looking at who are we collecting this from? Our servers, and we are distributing it to our bartenders. And now when I hit submit, we get this nice little rule summary to see exactly what's going on. And as I hit submit here, we're going to have 3 rules pop up, one for each one of our locations. This is live from this moment going forward. Every single time a server makes a sale of beer, liquor, or wine, we will automatically pull 2.5% of that beer, liquor, or wine cost and set it aside for the bartenders. Whoever is working that day will be receiving that based on the number of hours they worked. So a great piece. And now I want to show you what that actually looks like in practice. So the breakdown page. And you said, Kirk, you talked a lot about Microsoft Excel, and this looks exactly like a spreadsheet. What's the deal? Well, it's meant to replace that, and we wanted to make it comfortable. It's an easy way to visualize. So starting from the left, all of this data is automatically populated from your point of sale. And as soon as we get over right here into tip shares and tip pools, we'll start to see all of the logic we built in for all of our locations automatically bring in. Are these individuals contributing to the tip pool? Are they taking out from the tip pool? How much are they contributing from their tip share of their total tips? All broken down, automatically calculated for you. If you're in a state where you're allowed to deduct credit card tip fees from the tips, we can implement that in the settings, of course, and you can save that automatically. We do have an internal Venmo-like function called peer-to-peer, so employees can send tips back and forth to one another if they had to step outside, if they got in the weeds and they needed someone to cover their table and they ended up basically taking care of them all the way through, and they want to split that tip outside of your tip policies, they can do that and it is still tracked. Nice, neat right here from you. But where the rubber meets the road, the real number, the take-home column right here. So this is the taxable line item that you actually owe each one of your staff members from all the tips that have come in. After all calculations have been completed, tip sharing, tip pooling, anything you're running, banquets and events, things of that nature as well, all included. This is the number that's going out and the denominations to each individual employee to make them whole and keep you compliant. So it is a wonderful piece. If you are only using us on that side of the equation, you just want to calculate things, great. Export here, we have it available for you directly for your specific payroll company. So, we will work with you and set up something that imports directly in, one touch, done and out the door. We see payroll teams go from 10, 15 hours at minimum a month on calculating tips down to anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. Massive, massive time savings for folks. And you say, okay, well, Kirk, that sounds great, but what if we're not putting their tips on their paychecks? What if you're actually paying them? Well, I've got that available for you too. And so this is Earn Tip Access, or ETA, a proprietary piece to TipHaus that we coined. And the entire intention here is employees don't want to wait for their tips. They want the instant gratification. They just had a grueling shift where they got triple sat and they were sweaty and they went into a walk-in freezer to, maybe scream out loud for a brief minute away from everyone while things were chaos. You want to get them their tips as quickly as possible. So Earn Tip Access actually lets each employee enroll in whatever program is right for them. We have the ability to pay them into their existing debit card and their existing account that they already have. We have the ability to issue MasterCard cards to them. We are partnered with multiple FDIC insured banks to back this for them. We have the ability to even still put it on paychecks. And the goal here is we never want to make managers choose on behalf of the employees. At your restaurant, you're going to have employees at different stages in their life. If you have to pick one program to satisfy everyone, you will ultimately satisfy nobody. Leave that choice back to those employees. Let them switch between them at any time as they're growing through their lives and they're reaching economic maturity. They're hitting different milestones. We want to make sure we meet them where they are. And so we will break everything down for them. How much do they earn on the take home? How much is payable for these individuals? And when you click this Initiate Payout button, you will see all of the breakdown for it. We can click here to see each individual employee and which of those programs House Direct is directly to their existing debit cards. They don't have to open anything new. House Money is our completely free program to the card we issue to them. You'll see exactly how that breaks down. And if this was not a demo account, this would not be grayed out. And I'd click this button and $3,600 would go to all of your employees and the correct denominations Not instantly, because we're not allowed to say instantly in banking terminology, but I will say typically in 15 seconds or less, it will hit their accounts. So this is a fabulous tool. It is wonderful. It is highly, highly coveted and requested by employees. So I want to make sure that's available to you. And then I'll cover just a couple other quick items. We do have automatic things set up. So again, we're pulling in all the information for you, but we have the ability to add credit card tip fees within here. We automatically detect and set up payroll periods for you, so you don't have to think about it. It stores it accordingly. We have fabulous roles and permissions. Who wants view-only access? What stores should they be able to see? Who should be able to edit rules? How do we want this grouped? All available here from you. And with that, last but not least, we did introduce QR code tipping called Cheers by TipHaus, a fabulous little piece. And what this does is allows you to take tips on things of like to-go orders, off-site banquets or catering. You can do things for a valet if you have that. We see that often. Number of different ways where maybe a transaction actually isn't expected, but the consumer base doesn't carry cash anymore. This is a fabulous way to create that. And we love to be able to offer these flexibilities. We also have feedback modals in here. So if you don't want to accept tips, you just want to put a QR code so you can collect feedback about specific servers, guest experiences, whatever that might be, in atypical locations, particularly where, maybe it's not coming on the receipt to them. You do have this available. You can collect tips and feedback. You can collect either or. It's a fabulous, flexible tool that matches your branding and everything sorted with it. And with that, I am going to move. I know we are coming up on time, so I'm going to dive us back in. And I want to cover a few last minute items here. So as we have seen there, and hopefully you were able to tell with it, what is the impact for the operators here? Less admin time, of course. We don't want people spending time in the back office. We don't want them second guessing numbers. We don't want them rerunning calculations. Once they've adjusted a punch out, once someone got corrected on a job code, we want them working on the floor, serving your guest, touching tables, being a manager, right? We do have much, much stronger compliance with these. Automated calculations create a very, very defensible record. You have an audit trail ready to go. You have everything grouped by pay periods, the exact employees, the exact denominations. We track everything down to the 10,000th of a penny when we're sharing these so that we can see exactly where things are moving. Scalable operations, we work with groups anywhere from 1 unit, we have 1 unit coffee shops, all the way up to some of the most complicated groups in the world across airports, stadiums, events, hotels, you name it. There's almost no tip scenario that we cannot accommodate for you. Far fewer payroll headaches. Give your payroll team a break here. We should not be spending 20 hours calculating tips at the end of every pay period. We should be spending 5-10 minutes doing a cursory review and shipping it off and be done with it every single time. Far more confident, happier employees. We're reducing disputes. We're building trust. Even that trust that you weren't aware is being eroded. We want to drive that home. And of course, a tech stack that works. Every single one of these pieces that we work with, we are designed to be largely set it and forget it for you. We don't want you having to dive in every single day to adjust tip policies. We don't want you to have to recalculate items. We want this running in the background. You've put time and thought into exactly how it should function, and you can let TipHaus handle the rest. So with that, team, I want to touch on a couple of the operators who have made the switch. Riverside Hotel, I believe they're up out of Idaho. Jackie's an amazing woman up there who cares for her staff and really sought out opportunities with it. I won't bore us by reading through every one of the pieces. You can see it, but the summary there is 40 plus hours saved by eliminating these manual tip entries. Then we've got Republic Garden and Lounge, fabulous group. They cut their payroll processing time by 75%. And that was largely from tip reconciliation, having to go through and make adjustments after the fact. We've also got Value Hospitality, 280 hours per month in manager time that they're saving across their 10 locations. And Columbia Hospitality out of the Pacific Northwest. If you're familiar with them, fabulous group of hotels, restaurants, you name it. They reduced their tip reconciliation time by 97%, which was nuts to work with them and see their satisfaction as we got to that. And we've also introduced Cheers by TipHaus, that QR code module. So some great items, and they have a multiple POSs and a complicated tech stack that we were able to plug right in and get going with those. And if you all would love to see a demo, we have amazing account executives who would love to jump on, walk through it, talk through your tip policies, and help you curate and find the program that works for you. Feel free to scan this. We do offer an extended trial if you're coming from a webinar as a thank you for coming on, educating yourself about the market and the industry and the teams here. So with that, I will not take any more of your afternoon or morning, depending on where you're at, and I will bid you all a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us here today, team.